Time for a web exclusive. Mike Montecalvo, along with Eyewitness News analyst Lieutenant General Reginald Centracchio, is here. Lots to talk about today. We're going to talk about General Karzai, actually President Karzai, meeting with possibly the Taliban. But first, let's talk about the don't ask, don't tell policy. A judge really has kind of made it his world now to change that law.
You know, when I first heard that, I was really amazed to see that would happen. But if we understand the Constitution, you have a definite separation of powers. Here you have a Ninth Circuit judge that was able to change policy for the United States military worldwide. I'm really disappointed that it went this way because the Department of Defense was, in fact, on a clear path to determine what effect, if any, it would have on readiness. That has never been given a chance, and I know firsthand that there are many soldiers that would rather see something else in place or perhaps even maintain the current policy. My concern is, number one, readiness, whether in fact it has an impact on soldiers serving that would want to stay in the military. And more importantly, I think at this point, is those that in fact have a gay persuasion, what is it going to do to them without protection of the don't ask, don't tell? They're going to have to keep it to themselves without protection.
Okay, gay rights groups, by the way, are now warning gay troops not to disclose their identity. Is this for future ramifications?
I think so. I think until, once again, as it's being vetted, there's a serious concern that what would the impact be from soldiers that don't want to serve in the same unit, perhaps, and what effect would it have on the overall readiness of that particular organization or the military in general. I think the proper way to have done it would have allowed the Defense Department to continue its survey, to continue to study, to see, in fact, what impact it would have on overall readiness and whether the ranks across the military would be depleted for some reason, and what effect it would have on the all-volunteer service for all services.
Well, Defense Secretary Robert Gates says the ruling would have enormous consequences. What is he talking about by the consequences?
The consequences are what I just talked about, and that has to do with whether, in fact, you could maintain an all-recruited, all-volunteer organization. We would not probably have as many people volunteering as we had in the past several years and be able to maintain the force structure at its current level without a draft.
Even in 2010?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. You do get the Marines as an example. You have a different caliber of individuals that are, I don't want to use the word macho, but nevertheless they have a different frame of mind as it relates to what they can accept and what they won't accept and what they will. I'm not sure what impact that's going to have, if it has any at all. But I think if you look across the board to all the services, you will undoubtedly see an impact. Whether it's severe or not is yet to be seen. I am concerned whether, in fact, we would be able to maintain an all-recruited, all-volunteer service and not have to resort to a draft in order to maintain the numbers.
All right, you talk about the Marines. Incoming Marine Commandant General James Amos has told Congress already that he thinks most Marines would be uncomfortable with this change and that the current policy works. So this kind of goes along with what you're saying.
Absolutely. You know, everyone knows perhaps from time to time you have an individual who has a persuasion other than what you subscribe to. Now, if they don't force that on you, you can accept that. If they do their job and they're good soldiers and they do exactly what they're supposed to do to protect you and themselves, that's exactly what we've been experiencing over the last several years. Now, when you remove that and you openly serve, that's a very uncomfortable scenario that could, in fact, present itself that would impact not only the Marine Corps, but certainly across all of the services.
All right, Defense Secretary Gates says this is a question for Congress, not the judicial system. You agree?
Absolutely. You know, when you have the judicial branch that's making policy and circumventing the intent of the Congress, which had already embarked upon a study to determine whether this would be good for the country or not, and all of a sudden you have somebody out of the circuit court coming up that can in fact change something, the recourse now is obviously for the DOD to go to the Justice Department, file an appeal. They only have 60 days, as I understand it. If they don't do that, it becomes law. And in fact, the don't ask, don't tell would disappear, and individuals would openly serve in the United States military.
Well, there is a study being done on this issue. The study is supposed to come out probably like around December 5th. The Pentagon has not completed this whole thing yet. What happens at that point once that study comes out?
You know, once again, it's going to be over the 60 days. They're going to have to make a case within the 60 days if they decide to do that to use that as an example, let's wait until we see what the impact is on the survey, what the families think of it, what the soldiers presently serving, and what the propensity is for individuals wanting and desiring to be in the military with an openly gay individual serving in the same military.
Well, some of the generals, including Gates, are saying that a whole new training program would have to go into effect, and they said it's time-consuming.
Absolutely. It is time-consuming. Yeah, we went through this with the diversity training, went through it with the sexual harassment and other, definitive programs. This is a brand-new system now. You're going to have a pretty significant training program to bring in soldiers and say, look, this is the unit you're in. Be aware that this individual serving next to you is openly gay. How do you feel about that? And these are the things you need to prevent from doing. You can't take any reprisal against them. You have to have the confidence that they're serving equally as well as you are.
We have the same problem with men serving alongside women.
I am concerned that the major problem that we've had through the years is that fraternization has often interfered with readiness in some cases, and that has to do with heterosexual relations. So that will not go away. That'll always remain the same. Now, all you're doing here is adding an additional concern where you have gay individuals associating with other gays and perhaps approaching them for reasons other than the military readiness. And therefore you'd have an additional problem of the sexual aspects of the military.
But I'm saying back in the day, was that also a similar problem when men and women were
joining? Well, it still is. Yeah, it still is. That has not changed at all. I mean, there's been less of it, through the years. It wasn't until 1974 in this state where we had the first female serving in the Rhode Island National Guard. I was there, and I remember that well. And it was a lot of, concern about accepting that. Today we have outstanding soldiers, female, male. And I know that it's going to take some time to be able to overcome this obstacle. But I think in due time it will. The question is, will it impact readiness, and how soon will it do that?
And will it impact the November election? We're less than 3 weeks away here.
Unfortunately, it will become a political football, and unfortunately, it has evolved to that. It's identified itself as a political hot potato, and somebody just wants to push it from one side to the other. It will become an issue in the elections, and I think the Republicans and Democrats take different points of view on it, and I think that undoubtedly will become an issue that we haven't seen yet. Until this circuit judge made the decision.
Well, there's the new poll out, and obviously the economy, with unemployment being so high, so many people out of work, is the #1 issue. But I think kind of the concern here, General, for some, is national security and social issues like, what we're talking about here is way down on the voters list.
Yeah, it's a surprise insofar as when we say it, it's seeming, how can that be? But if you look at the American psyche, we have a very, very short time frame and a short span of attention, regardless of what we're doing. Unfortunately, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are very low compared to what we feel in the economy as it relates to jobs and how we're doing generally. Until all of a sudden we have a 9/11, and all of a sudden you have a tremendous flip-flop of what is really important to the American people. This too will have an impact. If it impacts the readiness of how we can effectively maintain and execute both wars, that'll give us additional concern as to what is the priority. Is it national security or is it the economy? And they will change places every so often. It depends upon what's happening to the United States at a particular time.
All right, you played quickly the political game. Do you see just in the next 3 weeks just about jobs? That's
Absolutely, and I don't think you'll see any change to that, and perhaps rightly so at this point. But during all that time, regardless of what we're experiencing as far as our priorities, the wars will continue, and we need to win the war. You can have the best economy in the world. Unless you have a viable capability to defend the United States, you can have the best economy. But if you're being attacked and you can't defend yourself, that's more concerning in my opinion.
Okay, a couple other things we want to talk about quickly. National Security Council has extended UN authorization for UN-led forces in Afghanistan for another year. The United Nations is hoping the United States will continue to participate, and it just brings up the fact that 30,000 troops could be coming out of there in less than 12 months. So
Absolutely.
How do we play this game if the UN is asking us to continue participating?
I think you're going to see the United States participating on a very limited basis, but I don't think you're going to see U.S. troops used in combat. You'll probably see them being used as advisors, perhaps, or some kind of logistics thing, and you're going to have to see other countries step in and fill the void for combat.
Yeah, but how do you look at Italy, let's say, and Britain, Great Britain, and say, all right, you're going to have to add troops because we're pulling out?
Well,
when we ask them to come in.
Well, the only thing that you're going to have to look at is what's happening in their countries. If you look at Italy, there's a lot of unrest going on. France, as an example, is going through some pretty tough times right now as far as the stress levels in trying to shut down the government. Russia sees its share of terrorism. China will see its share of terrorism. And I think when you start to see other countries recognizing they're equally as vulnerable as the United States, they've got to come to the table.
And this is, by the way, came up because there are new reports showing increased concern from violence from, let's say, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and maybe other illegal groups. And the topic has come up, should President Karzai actually sit down and meet with the Taliban to talk about Afghanistan?
Well, I think we've got to recognize as a nation, the United States, that we can't dictate exactly how they're going to operate the government. But understanding that if Karzai does sit down and woo the Taliban, woo in my mind means you're going to give them something they want. And if that means they have to be participants in the overall government of Afghanistan, that's what we'll see, similar to what Hamas is experiencing in Palestine.
Should President Obama get involved and talk to Karzai before this?
I don't think he should get involved in that at all, because that's a no-win situation.
Okay, it's really captured the world's attention, the 33 Chilean miners coming out in Chile. That's been unbelievable.
Shows you what the technology can do if countries work together. Here we can save miners from more than a mile deep with the technology that's available, and we do it as several countries together, but yet we keep killing each other on the other side of the world. So it's really a mind-boggling scenario, but I can't tell you how impressed I am with those several countries coming together, using technology and extracting those miners that would otherwise, perhaps even 5 years ago, have been left to die.
On Wednesday, the moratorium on drilling in the Gulf of Mexico lifted by the Obama administration. It was supposed to be something like November 30th was the date. But we've really seen now, General, over the last couple of months, some real new safety regulations that have been put into place. Absolutely. Do you think that's good enough, or we need to go further? Well,
I think we don't really have much of a choice. As long as we're continuing to improve the safety aspects of deep water drilling, especially with the current valve systems that would cut off at a well should it go array like the last one did. Those systems are better devised now. There are many safety features built into it, and many people checking it to ensure that it is working, and it does have the systems in place to be able to shut a well down, which was not available to the extent that it is today, even 90 days ago.
All right, quickly, two more things. More Rhode Island troops are coming home.
30 more troops from the 118th MP Battalion coming out of Gitmo. They should arrive in Rhode Island between 3 and 4 November.
And do we say happy birthday to the Navy?
Well, I'm sure it's still their birthday, but where they were born is a point of contention. We claim it in Rhode Island here in East Greenwich, as well as 4 other communities across the nation. But Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, declared that it was born on this date in 1775, and they look at Philadelphia being the birthplace.
Okay, General Centracchio, thank you very much for your thoughts. And thanks for watching.